Hello, and welcome to Wizard's World. My name is Jim Rodondi. This afternoon, we have with us the president of Yalla Tours, Ronan Paldi. Ronan will be presenting today on Israel and Jordan. Ronan, who has a passion for the Eastern Mediterranean region, its culture, history, and he is with us tonight to share that passion. As a reminder, we ask that you put yourself in a mute status, and if you have questions, place it in the chat box and we will get to your questions at the end of the presentation. So now let's begin. Welcome, Ronan.
Hello, Jim, and hello, guest of Wizard World. Good being with you. All right, see if I know how to share my screen. Hold on for a second. Hold on. There we are. Wow, it did work this time. Hello, everybody. You can hear from my accent. I'm an Israeli, been in the US for almost 28 years. And in Yalla Tours, we serve what we call the exotic Mediterranean, Israel, Jordan, Egypt, Greece, Turkey, Morocco, and the Gulf countries, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Oman, and as well as Cuba, which has nothing to do with the Mediterranean. And Melissa asked me to share with you some information about Israel and about Jordan, and mostly how does it relate to COVID. So let me give you some very accurate information about Israel. Israel chose last week, as a result of another spread of the COVID, especially with the British mutation, to totally close its border, including the airport, for the first time ever. But and this is going to be only for another 5 to 10 days only. However, Israel is the leading country in the world when it comes to vaccination, because more than 30% of the population have been already vaccinated, with 80% of the people over 60 are already being vaccinated as well. The goal and the prognostics and the plan is that by the mid to late March, more than 70% of the total population of Israel will be vaccinated, which be complete an achievement to be herd immunity. Passover starts at the very end of March on the 28th, and so does Easter. By then, Israel economy will open. It will start open gradually next month, actually. The anticipation is that by late March, April, everything will open. At the moment, Israel is requiring a negative test before you board the flight to Israel, when you land in Israel, and you will need to take a test before you leave Israel back to the US, because that's a new requirement of the FAA and the CDC, as well as the Israeli health authorities. Jordan is in a very different position. The infection rate in Jordan is so low that last week, Jordan opened its borders for Americans and everybody, as long as you come with a negative test before you board your flight to Jordan, when you arrive Amman, and when you leave Jordan back to wherever you go, if it's Europe or the US directly. Jordan will start vaccinating its population in February, but because of the low infection rate, it's not as urgent as it is in other countries. At the moment, crossing borders between Israel and Jordan are closed. And right now, no strict protocols have been set about what will happen when those borders are open. However, we anticipate that there will be a need to make a COVID test either upon arriving at one of the border sites or before leaving Israel. Please remember that as of yesterday, the FAA made it mandatory to wear a mask on all flights And everybody that enters back to the US, being an American returning from a holiday, or being a foreigner that enters the US, requires to have a negative COVID test. That is very important to remember, because both in Israel and in Jordan, people will be able to go to a private clinic and get the test so they can be negative before they return back to the US. Extremely important. All the information I'm giving you is based on today. Things will change. It's changing now with the Biden administration. It's changing, I don't want to say every day, but really every other day. And the vaccine that is starting to play a very important role will also be a factor that will change the requirements of traveling. How, what, when, nobody knows yet. I can speak to you what's going on in Israel. Israel will issue what is called a green passport, at the moment only for Israelis who got it in Israel. I'm an Israeli, but I live in the US, so I will not be qualifying for that. And that green passport will allow everybody that has recovered from COVID. More than 600,000 Israelis have already recovered from COVID. Everybody that's been vaccinated, more than 2.6 million out of the 9.4 million we have, to go to sport events, theaters, movies, shopping centers, and so on, the normal life that we all used to have until 10 months ago. What will happen with the rest of the world? I think everybody is waiting to see what will the say of the World Health Organization be. And I'm sure Wizard, as well as the media, are, and we'll be happy to keep you posted, and we'll be happy to keep you posted when it comes to our destination. Before we talk about Israel, please let me share with you some of the provisions we're using both in Israel and in Jordan. Number one, we don't put more than 25 people in a bus. Even though the bus seats 50 passengers, we don't fill it to capacity. We only fill half of it, so people can be spread and have, even at the bus, keep some social distancing. Number two, every group of 12 and more, we provide a personal headset so you can use it outside of the bus. So people won't have to squeeze with each other to be around the guide. In order to be able to keep social distancing, personal headsets will be given a group of 12 and more at no extra cost. We will provide in a van for individuals or in a bus for groups. No matter what the size of the van or the size of the group is, there will be always masks and alcohol gel in the vehicle, free of charge for you to use in case you forgot your mask in the room or whatever. It's going to be there. The driver and the guides, not only that they're wearing masks, they are extremely conscious about keeping the standards of safety travel in a post-COVID era. In Israel, all of our guides, and this is mandatory by the Ministry of Tourism, and the drivers will not go back to sleep at home. They will stay at the same hotel that the group is staying, basically making from that group, even if it's a small group of 8 or 12 people, a small capsule for the duration of the trip. The standards are being set up as we speak, and because Israel, even when the airport opens, will not allow tourists to come until probably sometimes towards the very end of March. All right, enough with regulations. Let's have some fun and enjoying some of the marvelous sights of Israel. Tel Aviv is not the capital of Israel. but Tel Aviv is the biggest city of Israel. It's like Washington and New York. One is the cultural, economic, business city of the country, and one is the political, in Jerusalem's case, also the religious. I'm a Tel Avivian myself. I'm very biased and proudly so. Tel Aviv is located on the shores of the Mediterranean. You can see here, that's Jaffa, which is literally annexed to Tel Aviv. You can see here some of the amazing beach area of Tel Aviv in Israel, all along the Mediterranean and even the Red Sea. You can have coffee shops and restaurants on the sand serving you with your bathing suit. And it's a fantastic time in the summer to go and have a cold watermelon with feta cheese on the beach when it's hot. Fantastic. And Old Jaffa, a biblical site mentioning both in the Old and New Testament, is now an artist colony with a lot of galleries and restaurants and a fisherman port and so on. We leave Tel Aviv to the north and stop at Caesarea Maritima. When you can see a large water aqueduct built by King Herod, more than 50 kilometers, 35 miles long, to carry water from the areas of Mount Carmel to Caesarea. Although Caesarea was a port located on the Mediterranean, it had no fresh water, and the water had to be brought from a distance. And another very important site in Caesarea is the Roman Amphitheater that is used today, not during COVID, before and after, for modern concerts and shows. The acoustic is perfect. And what you see here is one of the groups that we had last year, that the guide wearing the red shirt was walking to the very, very stage area, and he throwed a coin, and people sitting even as far high from the stage could hear the coin tossed as if it was a microphone, which there was none. And Caesarea is a very important site because the very first Gentile was converted to Christianity here in Caesarea. Paul was also arrested here and was shipped to Rome, where he was crucified. From Caesarea, we continue to Megiddo, also known in the gospel as Armageddon. We're going to see the ruins of King Solomon's stables. We're going to see the fantastic scenery of the Valley of Jezreel, and we will see a water tunnel that will lead us into a biblical tunnel that was built during the Old Testament site. And now we arrive at our hotel on the Sea of Galilee, called the Sea of Galilee Hotel, a brand new hotel opened in 2018. Every room overlooks this beautiful swimming pool and the Sea of Galilee. We use other hotels, but for our pilgrimages, we love to use this one because you see this green lawn area. Pastors and priests love to gather after dinner. We set for them some chairs just to talk, to maybe meditate, and be together in a natural atmosphere overlooking the Sea of Galilee. We then take a private boat along the Sea of Galilee. It's a wooden boat with the skipper halfway through the sailing, stops the engine, and he will demonstrate how in biblical days fishermen used to throw the nets into the water to fish. And of course, we remember what Jesus told the disciples: at this area, I will turn you from fishermen of fish into fishermen of human souls. We see the Genosar boat in Kibbutz Genosar. This is an authentic boat from the days of Jesus. Some cheeky tour guide said Jesus boat. I wouldn't go that far. The boat was found in 1986 during a flood and drought area, and a fisherman actually found it. It was under preservation for more than 18 years, and now it's displayed as you see that. We're going to visit it so you can see an actual fisherman boat as it used to sail the Sea of Galilee in the days of Jesus. We'll stop at the Church of the Multiplication, a beautiful German Catholic church that celebrates the location of the Church of the Multiplication of the Fish and the Loaves. It's a Benedictine German church in Tabqa. We go to Capernaum, Peterstown, and the area where Jesus really established he chose 5 of the 12 disciples here in Capernaum. And we see the ruins of this ancient synagogue, not from Jesus' days, it's from the Byzantine days in the 5th and the 6th century, and the synagogue that Jesus used to worship as a teenager and as a young man in his 20s. We go to the Church of the Primacy, located on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. That is where Jesus chose Peter to be the first pope. That's what we call primacy. Primus in Latin means first. On the Jordan River, where we'll have the pastor of the group performing at the renewal of the vows of baptism. This is the Jordan River. Every person that would wish to be rebaptized will take you to a locker, men and women separate, of course, give you this robe, and the baptism will take place. Very emotional and important part of our pilgrimage. Mount of Beatitudes, one of the most important sites in our pilgrimage. It was built, believe it or not, by Benito Mussolini in 1932. And the reason it's so important is because 2 major events that happened here at the same time. Sermon on the Mountain, Matthew chapter 5, when Jesus really set the theology on philosophy of what today we call Christianity. At the time, it was called the Judeo-Christians. And also, Peter sets here the logistics, the administration of his ministry by choosing 7 of his disciples, with the 5 he chose in Capernaum, the 12 disciples. Everything happened here. Great view, as you can see in the small picture, from the chapel inside. Now we go north to Caesarea Philippi, different from Caesarea Maritima, which is on the top of by the Mediterranean. Caesarea Philippi is by the Golan Heights, and here is the sources of the Jordan River. The beginning of it are in those small waterfalls. We walk to the chapel, the Byzantine Chapel here. Nice, easy walk to commemorate basically Jesus meeting with the disciples after his resurrection. We continue to the Golan Heights, and the Golan Heights is not really biblical, but it's so important in Israeli history, in the politics. And if you would want, we'll take a jeep tour in the hidden corners of this fantastic mountain range that also is the border between Israel and Syria. And now we start taking the drive south, leaving the Galilee towards Jerusalem. We'll stop in Beit Shean, also a Roman city with a beautiful theater. Right now, the theater that you see only seats 2,000 people. In 18 months from now, they are expanding it, and they're adding another 3,000 seats, not Roman seats, will be more than Israeli seats. What you're seeing here is only 15%. The Cairo and other aspect of the archaeological ruin, it's only 15% of the archaeological site. All this hill, one day will be excavated. It's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's a work in progress that will last for many, many years. We arriving at Cana, at the Church of the Wedding, where Jesus performed his very first miracle, converting the water into wine, as he was way from Nazareth to the Sea of Galilee. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, but his father and mother, Mary and Joseph, were from Nazareth. When Jesus was 4 years old, his parents, who fled Nazareth to Egypt, his parents returned at the death of King Herod in the year 4 after Christ to Nazareth, and Jesus really grew up here most of his teenage life. We don't have much evidence of that. Nazareth today is the largest Arabic city, although the vast majority of the population are Muslims and not Christians. This is the church of the Annunciation, because Mary was announced by the angel Gabriel that she's going to be the mother of Jesus. And we are visiting the church of the Annunciation. Inside of it, it's one of the most modern churches, built by the Vatican in 1961. An amazing visit. And for Catholic groups, that is usually one of the favorite places to say Mass on that day. From here, we'll visit the Nazareth Village, which is a reenactment of a first century biblical village. Again, I don't want to be cheeky and tell you that is the village when Jesus lived. No, but that is the village like the one Jesus lived. And we're going to have a biblical style lunch included in the program. Not so much for the culinary, but to make sure that you get the taste and the feeling of how it was to have a meal in biblical days. We end our visit in Nazareth at Mount Precipice, overlooking at the different angle from about to the Jezreel Valley and Mount Gilboa, which we'll come to it in a minute. We continue to Jerusalem, and we arrive at one of our favorite hotels in Jerusalem for pilgrimages, the Dan Jerusalem, with a dining room and most public areas that are very high, as you can see, with a perfect view of the old city, Mount Scopus and Mount of Olives. Jerusalem is Jerusalem is Jerusalem. Nothing we can do about it. The holiest city in the world, the city where Judaism, Christianity, and even Islam worship as their holy city. The view you see from here is the view from Mount of Olives, overlooking at the old city, the Mount Moriah and the Temple Mount, and in the background we can see some sky rises, not many, that are the sky eye of Jerusalem. And the center of Jerusalem is the old city with an Ottoman walls built in 1516. Those walls were built 500 years ago, and they are around and they are surrounding the old city of today, and the only city until 1860. And the tower here is the Tower of David, a museum. It used to be a mosque, now it's a museum by the Jaffa Gate. And on Mount of Olives is one of our first visit to the Church of Pater Noster, our Father, when we will see more than 80 versions, different languages of the Our Father. And this is one of the original 3 churches built in the world. It was built by Queen Helena, the mother of King Constantine, the Byzantine, who not only converted his empire to be Christian, it became a compulsory for everybody in the empire to become a Christian. This is not the original authentic church that was destroyed in the 7th century. It is a church that was built in stages from some during the Crusaders in the 11th, 12th century, and mostly in the 19th century. And now this is a view of Mount of Olives from the bottom. The Church of Gethsemane and the Church of All the Nations, you can see the inside of the church on the small screen. That is the area where Jesus was and the disciples spent the night after the Last Supper. Then Jesus told the disciples that he's going to be going by himself to pray, And he returned and saw them all asleep, and he was very upset with them. The Russian church of Mary Magdalene, which is literally 50 or 60 meters from Gethsemane, that is where Jesus was worshiping while the disciples fell asleep. And we're going to see Mount of Olives from the top, and we'll see it from the bottom. And of course, visiting the Church of all the nations. It's called like that because at the beginning of the 20th centuries, many poor countries and unimportant countries, the US being one of them, decided to gather together and build a big fund so they could build a church. By then, only the big empires, Russia, Germany, Austria, Italy, built churches in the Holy Land. But US and other European and South American countries could not. Didn't have enough money nor importance. And it took about 12 years to build this church. Beautiful floor mosaics that could see from almost everywhere around the old city. And the Garden of Gethsemane, which hosts 8 olive trees, this is one of them, that's another one, that date back to the days of Jesus. This is the only live testimony of the days of Jesus. Here, I'm not being cheeky, but here I am telling you for certain, Jesus saw those trees. Maybe not with such a large trunk. No, there were probably young trees like that tree at the time. But that's one of the 8 trees at the Garden of Gethsemane, which we will be walking around. You and I cannot touch that tree that Jesus saw. And those trees to this date give olives. And the Franciscan monks that are in the church 2 or 3 times a year, they harvest the olives and they make even olive oil. From here we go to Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. Again, one of the 3 original churches that Queen Helena built. However, again, the original church was destroyed. And what we're seeing here is a Crusader church and a Byzantine church. Inside of the church, a perfect basilica. And we will go down to the manger that you can see here in the small picture where Jesus was born. One of the very few places in Israel that there is no argument between Catholics, Protestants, the Orthodox, and everybody else, that is the place where the biblical aspect, in this case, Jesus' birth, happened. Everywhere else, we have arguments, and I'm a poor Jewish boy. I'm not here to resolve any conflicts between Catholics and Orthodox and anybody else. I have enough troubles as it is. We'll also visit the shepherd fields outside of Bethlehem, literally 2 miles outside of Bethlehem. And this is the area where the Holy Kings came to visit Mary, who gave birth in Bethlehem. We said before that Mary and Joseph were from Nazareth, but King Herod, he was a bit maniac, but a great builder of Israel. He gave the order to kill the innocent boys. Every boy that is born will be killed. And because they knew they were carrying the Son of God, they decided to flee Nazareth and the Galilee and go to Egypt, which was a different province of the Roman Empire. But according to historians, not so much biblical, as they traveled through Bethlehem, which they had to register because there was a census, Mary just gave birth in the manger. We were going to the Dead Sea. I'm changing subject. We're going to the Dead Sea and we'll stop to see the caves of Qumran. Because, ladies and gentlemen, in this cave, that is where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. They found them in 1947. This is the Dead Sea Scrolls, among other things, is the oldest original copy of a biblical book. In this case, the 66 chapters of the book of Isaiah were found here. Today, that is where the Israel Museum will be able to see them in a minute. And from here, we continue to Masara along the Dead Sea. Masara, not a biblical site, but a very, very famous fortress built again by King Herod to have a place to refuge in case if somebody tries to take over his empire. A very interesting visit. It's a whole day drive from Jerusalem to Qumran, visit Masara. We see the Dead Sea in the background, and those are not mountains of sand. This is the reflection of the sun, not the snow, already in Jordan, because the Jordan River and the Dead Sea, they separate Israel from Jordan. And after Masara, you will go to the Dead Sea. Yes, take your bathing suits, and no matter how much you weigh, doesn't matter, you will float. The Dead Sea, it's really a lake, it's not a sea. It's so oily and so salty that everybody can float. If you really want to be cheeky, take a newspaper from your home, and when you get to the Dead Sea, lie down and you can hold your newspaper and have somebody take a picture of you. I've seen so many of those picture taken. People don't believe this is not Photoshop. This is for real. That's how it looks. And you can see here on that small picture, the salt. The salt, the lowest place of Earth, 1,400 feet below sea level, and the saltiest one. We're back in Jerusalem to the Holocaust Memorial, which we'll spend several hours. And we're going to have a very special surprise for you. We will meet with a local Jewish cantor that for 10, 12 minutes will conduct, and your pastor will conduct a quick memorial service for the 6 million Jews that were killed on the Holocaust. Today, by the way, it's International Holocaust Day, today, on January 27th. I don't care if you are devoted Christians or not, or Catholics or Jewish, doesn't make any difference. We're all humans. We all share humanity under the sky. And to prevent another Holocaust, we really need to learn and understand what happened on the original Holocaust. And from a personal note, I can tell you, we as humanity, we haven't learned our lesson. Just look at Rwanda, look at Sudan, look at Cambodia, and so many other atrocities that government and people have done to other fellow human beings. The shrine of the book is inside of the Israel Museum, and that is where the book of Isaiah from the Dead Sea is displayed. Here it is here in the small image. The shape of the white shape that you can see, it's the shape of the cover of the lid of the jar that the scrolls were found in Qumran by the Dead Sea. It was a jar that was covered with a lid. This is the shape of it. In the inside, see, that's the inside of that shape. We can see a scroll of a Torah, of a Bible. And along it, we have the 66 chapters of the book of Isaiah, together with other documents that were found in Qumran, written by the sect of the Essenes. Essenes, who John the Baptist spent many years with, although he was not part of that sect. And now we're going, you realize I'm going around the religious sites of Jerusalem. Now we will go outside of Jerusalem to Tel Maresha to participate in an actual archaeological Old Testament dig. It's a live dig. There are professional archaeologists, but yes, you will need to dig, to crawl in a cave and get dirty and get muddy and get a lot of fun while we do that. If you find something, you cannot take it with you. You cannot keep it. It immediately must be delivered to the archaeologists on the site so they can document it and do some studies. But who knows? Who can that be? That can be the Holy Grail, right? And now we are in Jerusalem, starting with the visit to the Church of Peter Gallicantus. This was the house of the high priest Caiaphas. And in the dungeon, in the basement of the church, that is the dungeon where Jesus was kept after he was betrayed by Judas. before he was taken for his final trial. We are visiting this church, which inside is very impressive. And we drive along the Kidron Valley. The Kidron Valley separates Mount of Olives, which is on the top here, and the old city. And we see 4 monuments, which takes all day together, so we just see them from a distance. This is the monument for Absalom, David's son, that tried to rebel against his father. God punished him and he was killed. This picture was taken, the 2 pictures was taken from the window of the bus by one of our pilgrims a few years ago. And now we arrive at the city of David. Jerusalem was built by King David. His son, King Solomon, built the first temple of Jerusalem. And David built that city close to a source of water. Only in the last 30, 40 years, the archaeological area of that today known as the city of David was that. Before that, we knew it was there, but for political reason, it could not do anything. Today, it's a visit of about 2 hours, including some tunnels like the pool of Siloam. And depends on the water level, we'll be able to walk. We'll be able to walk in a tunnel that was built in the year 875 before Christ to supply water to Jerusalem that needed so much the water as the city was expanding. From here, we take a tunnel that takes us straight to the southern temple of Mount Temple. The temple is called the Pilgrims Mountain. And ladies and gentlemen, look at those stairs. Those are the original stairs that led to the temple 2,000 years ago, the temple that Jesus visited. And if you look carefully, we have a gate here, and we have a gate, we have a gate here and a gate there. Those were the original gates to enter the temple 2,000 years ago. The temple of Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans. King Herod built it and finished it in the year 20 BC. It was destroyed 93 years later by by Titus, the Roman. Jewish pilgrim, and remember Jesus was a Jew and he was a pilgrim, came to Jerusalem, climbed those stairs and entered the temple. Today, this is a mosque, and I'll show you some better picture in a minute. The whole area of the temple called Mount Temple, it's a mosque that was built in the 7th century and stays there until today. There is no Christian or Jewish allowed inside those mosques. We'll come to it in a minute. But you realize we saw the tree that Jesus saw, and we can step on the stairs, those steps that Jesus stepped as well. The Western Wall is the continuation of the wall we saw before. The holiest site in Judaism. However, it was not an important part of the temple. You see, the temple is here above us. That is where the temple was. This is a mosque, the Dome of the Rock. Over there is the Dome of Al-Aqsa. And that is where the Holy of the Holies was when the temple was in existence. This was the Western Wall. This was a protecting wall around the wall. Around the temple. When the temple was destroyed, this is the only area that remained from the temple, surroundings, and so on. You might know it under the wrongly name calling the Wailing Wall, but should be called the Western Wall. And where we're going to visit it. Here you can see from a close-up people worshiping. You're welcome to do the same. Men and women are standing separately. Let me go to the previous image. You see, this is the women's section separated by a fence. That is the men section. And you're very welcome to write a small note with any wish or any prayer you want and stick it between the walls. You can see it here. It's thousands and thousands of papers that once or twice a year, the rabbis take it and they bury them. Because the moment that paper is stuck between the stones, it becomes holy, and we cannot just throw it away. It has to be buried. And here we are entering the old city from a different angle at St. Stephen's Gate, also known as the Lion's Gate. And as we're entering the St. Stephen's Gate, we start walking the Via Dolorosa, the Way of the Cross, the 14 stations of the cross. Here is an image of station number 3. But as we walk the Way of the Cross, we're walking in a market, in a bazaar. That's the famous Jerusalem Bazaar. We'll walk under this arch, which is where Caiaphas saw Jesus carrying the cross, and he said, Ecce homo, behold the man, in that area. We arrive at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Again, the third church built by Queen Helena. Today, we are seeing the Crusader Church that is divided in different chapels. Inside this Greek chapel, that is the place that both Catholics and Orthodox believe Jesus was buried. And from here we resurrected. Protestants believe in another place. And that is the Garden Tomb. And the Garden Tomb was discovered only in the 19th century by a British archaeologist, Gordon. And the Church of England adopted it quite immediately. The other Protestant churches followed through. And according to their belief, this is the entrance to Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified and resurrected. As I told you, as a poor Jewish boy, I will not tell you who is right nor who is wrong. But I can tell you that the sense of holiness and strong spirit is at the Garden Tomb. With the door closed, it says he's not here, for he is risen. And from here we move to Jordan. By the way, we need 10 nights in Israel to do the program I just shared with you. So if you want to talk to your pastor or priest to put a pilgrimage together, talk to them and have the good people at Wizard World contact us to put it all together for you. We cross the Jordan by bus from your hotel in Jerusalem. We cross the Jordan River through the Allenby Bridge. The distance between the hotel and the border is about 45 minutes. Procedure is about an hour, and then you sit in Jordania bus, and there we go. This program that we're presenting was presented to Elsie for some of your customers, Elsie, that want to go to Jordan in October. We start in Jerash. Remember, we saw in Israel Beth Shean, the Roman theater. Well, Jerash is like a twin city, another Roman city, and with a lot of ruins, much bigger ruins than the ones in Beit Shan, because it has been excavated for many, many years. Unlike Beit Shan, from Jerash, we continue to Amman, the capital of Jerusalem. And Elsie, that is special for you. That is the W Hotel that Lisa quoted you, a beautiful hotel. I took that picture when I saw this hotel 2 years ago. That is how the room looks like. No Photoshop, no nothing, with that view of Amman. Amman is the capital of the kingdom of Jordan. We go to the Dana Reserve. Although Jordan is a big desert, even in biblical terms, we have this natural reserve with a lot of greenery and a fantastic opportunity to visit it until we arrive Wadi Rum. Look at the scene, at the change of scenery. Wadi Rum, an area that Lawrence of Arabia was extremely active in. Wadi Rum, where many movies were filmed. The last one was The Martian with Matt Damon, because it has a strong resemblance of Martian scenery. We will spend a night in Wadi Rum in that beautiful Sun City camp. We have luxurious, these are the regular tents, or each tent with bathrooms, private bathrooms, and showers per couple. We don't do orgies in our programs. This is just per couple. But if you want to upgrade to have what's called the igloos, also per couple with private facilities and toilets, and inside gives the sensation that you're looking at the stars. And also in Wadi Rum, we take a jeep ride all along Wadi Rum for about an hour and a half, an amazing experience. We continue to Petra, that about 10 years ago was announced as one of the 7 wonders of the New World. The reason, because when the 7 wonders of the world were not invented but were named, nobody knew that Petra existed. Petra was discovered. It was built by the Nabateans.